Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Albert Apro, the National Director of Amnesty International Australia. Amnesty International is a global movement committed to defending those who are denied justice or freedom. Today we are here to represent those suffering unnecessarily. Today we are here to be the voice to those who have been deprived of one. Today we are here to address a growing political and social misconception surrounding asylum seekers. A misconception that, if left continue on the same path, will ultimately become a shameful memory in Australia's history. Leaving your country for good is one of the hardest decisions you can be forced to make. It means a break with all that you know, your family, your friends, your livelihood, all the familiar sights, sounds, smells and tastes. This is Nahiba's reflection, a young girl who fled Afghanistan after the Taliban killed many of her family and friends. Unfortunately, Nahiba's story is just one of millions. So why, as a country that prides itself on being fair, are we turning away people in need, people who are desperately seeking safety? I want you to take home 3 facts today. Firstly, asylum seekers are not illegal. It is a human right to seek asylum. Secondly, they benefit our society. Finally, offshore processing costs Australian taxpayers more money than admitting them to Australia. People commonly mistake asylum seekers for illegal immigrants, yet seeking asylum is a universal human right. Under the UN Declaration of Human Rights, which Australia helped to write, anyone has the right to gain refugee status, regardless of how they arrive. Why do people believe that seeking asylum is illegal? Because politicians contribute to this misconception. Tony Abbott, in particular, he is present today, is guilty of using the media to wrongly instill fear within the general public about people arriving by boat. The likes of Abbott suggest that boat people are arriving on our shores in hordes. This is entirely untrue. The majority of illegal immigrants in Australia arrive by plane. They are visa overstayers. Currently more than 50,000 of them live in Australia. They remain in Australia after their visa has expired. How is it that so few people are aware of these illegal immigrants? It has never been illegal to arrive in Australia seeking asylum. However, using a visa to get into Australia and never leaving is. I would like to remind everyone here about Australia and what it means to be Australian. We are a nation of battlers. We are a nation of underdogs. A nation of people who pride themselves on egalitarian values. So why can't we open our arms to those who need it the most? We, as humans, are said to judge others by actions and ourselves by intention. Everyone in this room has descended from migrants. We are all from lands far from this one, yet no one questioned your intention, history of freedom, upon birth or entry of this land. You weren't thrown into a camp, waiting to gain permission to live your life. Why are those in situations so desperate that people who came in desperation are not given the same right? Why is their freedom not as important as ours? It is often argued that introducing and accepting asylum seekers would result in a lack of jobs for Australians. We are educated on this issue through fear and scare tactics. What remains unaddressed is Australia's lack of recognition of degrees, skills and documents from the nations that refugees have escaped from. These qualifications are left behind as they pass over our borders, with the primary option being to start fresh and often to start on their own. What this means is the introduction of new businesses and in turn new jobs and services. This is not detrimental. This is Australia. It is what we stand for as a nation, and yet we are putting a stop to the very thing that will help us grow. Those who oppose asylum seekers in Australia refer to one argument time and time again. This argument is that asylum seekers cost Australia too much money. Let me make one thing clear. It is not the asylum seekers themselves who are putting a financial burden on Australia. The costs come from the policies made by the government. The government's recent move to reintroduce offshore processing brings with it a $1 million price tag per day. But the costs do not end there. Further expenditure is required to update the ruinous buildings and ensure that adequate numbers of staff are placed at the facilities. We, as taxpayers, fund it. This is money that could be invested into building further infrastructure to sustain a growing population. No need for offshore processing centres exist. The asylum seekers do not want it. The Australian economy could certainly do without it, and the entire process is unnecessary and costly. There have often been claims that to accept refugees could threaten the nature of a sustainable Australia. It seems too easy for people to forget the benefits that accepted refugees have brought to the country and will continue to bring. Tan Le was only 5 years old when her family made the dangerous journey from Vietnam to Australia. She traveled with her family across the South China Sea in a vessel disguised as a fishing boat. The threat of pirates, rape and even death were constant. After 3 months in a refugee camp, they settled in Melbourne to start a new life. Jump forward 16 years and that little girl was the president of a group that helped other Vietnamese refugees find training, employment and counseling after experiencing the same ordeal. For her work, she was awarded the Young Australian of the Year. Looking at her today, Tan Le is the CEO of a technology company responsible for developing a device that allows quadriplegics to interact with computers through thought. Tan Le's story is unique, it is extraordinary, and it highlights the potential that all refugees have coming to Australia. Asylum seekers are often referred to as these people or them, as if such a divide makes it okay to board asylum seekers up and ignore their plight. We are regularly presented with fabricated facts from politicians against asylum seekers, but here are the hard facts. Firstly, seeking asylum is not illegal. Secondly, asylum seekers benefit our society. Thirdly, offshore processing costs Australians more in tax than admitting them into the country under refugee laws. These people are humans, humans just like us, with families just like us. They bleed just like us, and just like us they love. And just like us they want to live peacefully, a life free from fear. Yet, unlike us, they are boxed into tiny facilities after having traveled thousands of miles. Unlike us, they have endured violence and death. Unlike us, they have decided to leave all they know behind in hope. Hope of a better life. Yet, they arrive here only to be shut away, labeled as illegal, and told they have no right to be here. All because Australia was not the place where they were born. But what happens when the place you were born is riddled with violence and crime? How can we say you have no right? No right to seek safety, no right to hope for peace. How can we, Australia, how can we turn away? How can we reject those in need, those willing to risk so much for so little? We, Amnesty International, support human rights. We, Amnesty International, support asylum seekers. Because just like you and I, they too deserve freedom and they deserve peace. When was the last time someone questioned you? Thank you, ladies.